Hello, everyone. Lovely to see you all again. And I'm talking today with Elaine Almond, who is a fantastic artist. She really moves me. And I came across Elaine a while ago through an arts group. You may know of Pure Arts. And we didn't know each other, but we were both coinciding in Cornwall at the same time. And our ships did not meet. We made arrangements to meet up. We were in the same street almost and didn't actually quite get together. So I was very fortunate in that Elaine was participating in a couple of exhibitions here in Kent. And I popped along, fell in love with her work in the real. I think you can't really appreciate art until you actually see it. And of course, found out about her exploits in Cornwall. So I've invited Elaine to come and talk to us today. Hi, Elaine, how are you?
Morning, I'm fine, thanks.
I'm really quite excited about this because I've seen some of your seascapes from Cornwall. And obviously, following you at the exhibitions, I realised you have a great plethora of work and styles. So, well, not necessarily styles, but work. So let's find out some more. Perhaps you could tell us how you first started. What drew you to art in the first place?
I don't know what drew me in the first place because obviously when I was at school I liked it, um, but I was stopped from doing it. So I ended up doing nursing, midwifery, teaching, all kinds of things. Um, Spent some time in South America, which was in Peru, working
Really?
when I was younger, which was very liberating actually, because it's a much more outgoing culture than we have here. And and eventually I got to a point where I think I must have been talking about it at work, but I wasn't well and I was having some medical treatment and actually getting into work every day. And I was working at the time as a therapist and listening to other people's concerns. Actually, I'm sitting there thinking, I could be doing with this. So I decided I would stop. I would take early retirement and I would learn to paint. And I went off on a beginner's weekend with a wonderful artist called Caroline Hulse, who sadly is no longer with us, but
Oh,
was on the Oxfordshire borders, just outside Reading, a place called Maple Durham.
okay.
And I was hooked. First weekend, I was hooked, and
Mhm.
I that was 2008, and I have just kept going over what is nearly 20 years now. And I've had a go at all sorts of things. So I've learned oil painting. I went back to her, and the game changer was um, when she ran an abstract art course in 20. Well, she did an oil one in 2016 that was long, and we learned about a lot about design and composition and all kinds of things there. And then she did a 6-month course on abstract art in 2017. And four of us stuck it out. It was the hardest work.
Was it?
Um, and I was just finishing doing some work as a lay minister at the time, and this, and but it was absolutely wonderful.
Mm.
And that for me made a big shift from doing quite ordinary um, figurative work and painting a lot of landscapes
Mm.
in moving into more abstract and being able to give more of yourself, because that's the fundamental shift, I think,
Uh-huh.
is is having some more of you in the painting rather than it being external. You sit
Mm.
next to a nice bunch of flowers like you've got
Yeah.
behind you there, and you paint the flowers, and however beautiful they are the bunch of flowers. So yeah, I've just kept going, doing courses here and there,
Mm.
trying things out.
Mm. That's an interesting concept, actually, that abstract art is more about the artist than the external world, although you may be representing the external world in some way. So, would you say your art is quite emotional?
I think it is really. I mean, as a therapist, a lot of what people don't do, and I'm have been as guilty of this as anybody else, and we all can be at times, is not really expressing things when we need to. Um, you know, we need to unwind at the end of the day, and um, if we have an upset, we need to process it in some way. How you do that is up to you. You may go and I used to do a lot of weeding, and you can think through all sorts of stuff while you're digging the garden or weeding or doing kind of other things. Um, Now I may paint that out. Um, and I have a series of paintings that are on my website they're in the abstract box called Out of Darkness. And it was when I was dealing with a very difficult situation and middle of the night, because it was running around as things
Yeah.
do sometimes. Um, I got the idea for these paintings, and after I had met with a family who were in some difficulty, the next day when I had a day clear, I just was in here all day painting.
Wow. Yeah.
And at
That's
the
a
end of
great
it, I had
story.
4
Yeah.
paintings, and one of them's called Light Breaks In, because that's what I was wanting,
Yeah.
some light on the situation. So
Mm.
it was kind of my take. And they are emotional, some of them, whereas some of them are an abstraction of the landscape, but they've got some of the feeling in that I felt when I was in that landscape. So the
Mm.
Cornish ones are a bit like that, really.
I was just going to mention the Cornish ones because there's a wild, let me explain to everyone that the part of Cornwall that Elaine and I found ourselves in at the same time was right down the tip of Cornwall on the Cape of Cornwall, which is quite a rugged sea area. And I spent all my summers there. My family's from there. And I'm interested. When I saw the paintings, Elaine, they weren't what I expected. So how did that affect you? What did you get from being in that place?
Well, we were down. What you haven't told the viewers, Victoria, is that we were down there virtually in a hurricane.
Oh, yes. Well, I was so
It
absorbed with family that I forgot the weather.
exactly. So the weather was terrific. When we arrived at the cottage on Cape Cornwall, my colleague and I were told, be very careful. Tomorrow the wind is going to be high. It
Yes.
was actually 90 miles an hour, and we couldn't go out because we opened the front door and we nearly got blown over.
Yeah.
So we were there for the stormiest week that they had had in ages, and you couldn't but feel it. I mean, even
Mm.
before the highest winds came, I got blown over when we went to Botallock, where
Oh,
the tin
yes.
mines are.
Yeah.
So, given that I'm painting with my feelings and not just with my eyes,
Mm.
I got stormy paintings,
Yeah.
and the week improved, but it was slowly improving. I mean,
Mm.
even on the Thursday before we came home on the Saturday, you couldn't go out because the wind and the rain was so hard. So we worked
Mm.
indoors. So this sketch that you can see behind me is
Mm.
after a morning sitting on the beach, and then had to go home because the weather was too rough. And I got a big sheet of paper out and charcoal and metallic inks, because there's a
Oh,
lot of
yes.
metals in the rock, and
Yeah.
just freewheeled on that. Whereas
Yeah.
if I turn the camera the other way, you can see what Victoria's talking about when it comes to stormy weather up the coast. And that one was about the eye of the storm.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and
Amazing.
it just
And of
gives
course,
you an idea. They look a lot better in reality than you can see on
yeah.
the camera, I think.
Well, I was in the village,
I
the
don't know what
town,
you were expecting, whether you thought
and
you'd be
you've
nice.
got buildings to corral you and give you some refuge. But
Yeah.
down where you were, to explain to everybody, is very insular, isolated rather, and exposed, so exposed to the elements. Um, So did that change you in some way? Did it change your art, or did it just bring it all together?
I think it worked more in bringing it all together. I mean, what I found was I always work fairly quickly. You know, some people work very slowly, but I always work fairly quickly at most things. If I'm going to do it, I'll do it. Um, and it just cemented what I could achieve in a week, because safeguarding time for your art in everyday life is always a battle, I
Yeah.
think. And in that week, when Deborah and we had nothing else to distract us. We're in a little house where there's no television. Internet was precarious. We could get reception on our phones by holding it in one of the windows at night, just to talk to our other halves at home. Um, we had nothing to distract us, so we could do what we wanted. And I actually did 7 paintings.
Oh,
They're not
that was
all
one of my
large.
questions. How many paintings did you do? Yeah, 7.
I mean, 4 of them are quite large, and
Mm.
then actually there are 3, 4, 5 small ones, so 9 paintings
Wow. Mm.
in a week, plus these big sketches,
Yeah.
just because there were no distractions.
Great.
And I
Fantastic
came to,
opportunity. Mm.
sorry?
Fantastic opportunity.
Yeah, and I thought maybe for me that's a good way to work,
Mm.
is to have a week every so often where I'm not distracted and I don't do anything else, whether I go away or I somehow manage it here, I'm not sure.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but that is a way of working rather than a day here and a day there, which is,
Mm.
I roughly two days in the studio and a day's admin in the week.
Yeah.
But to have it as a whole week with no distractions, fantastic,
Mm.
because we went and looked at the tin mines, and on a rainy afternoon, we were able to go to the museum, which gives you, I've been there before,
Mm.
but it gives you, a better idea of things.
Mm. Mm. A friend of
Um,
mine is an author, and she's written 3 books. I believe it's 3. But each time, even though her family are only yards away, she's removed herself at times to hide in a hotel, just close the
yeah,
door on the family, especially when the children are younger. And I think
yeah,
sometimes that is the level of commitment it takes to just say, right, I need this time. That's
mm,
rare, rare to find,
yeah.
isn't it? So yeah, I understand. I was quite envious of you because I intended to paint while I was there, but family matters took
But you
over.
didn't, no.
But it was just lovely being in that atmosphere, and I was so happy for you. So how are you getting on at the exhibitions then? Because obviously when I saw a vaster array of your work when I came to the exhibitions, the first one I think was in the Rochester Corn Exchange, and the
Mhm.
second one was in a Rutham Village Church. Um, Beautiful. I don't know which one I preferred. I think I preferred the village church.
So I took some abstracted landscapes to Rutham, and a few that are purely abstract. Currently, we're in the middle of Southeast Open Studios, so I'm with 4 other artists in a home in Hadlow, in Kent.
Uh-huh.
Um, it's about 15 minutes drive from here, and I've got a mixed bunch of more abstract work together there, small, very small, and some medium-sized pieces. Um, and then after that, I'm having a break because I've done a whole row of exhibitions, and as you will know, it takes quite a lot of work getting
Yeah.
each one together, and then being there, which is lovely, and talking to everybody um, takes a lot of energy as well. So there'll be a break. I need to do a bit of writing, and there are some other issues I need to deal with. So at the moment, I don't know what will be happening in the autumn. I can't give you plan A or B on that one. I know there are some visits I need to make that are art connected. But I can't say more than that at this point, really.
But it's nice to know that the inspiration will come, but in the respite, when we take time for ourselves, it's time for opportunity for new things to rise up from within us, especially if you are basically an emotionally led or based artist interested in abstract.
I can show you some.
Yes, please.
I
Yeah.
can turn the camera around. When I was very unwell last autumn, I have a sketchbook here, and at that point I couldn't do much, so I would sit here at the table and just work in my sketchbook in pastels, so doing all sorts of completely abstract stuff. That was just what I felt on the day. And I'm going to turn the camera around in a sec.
Yes, please. Yeah.
When I was able to paint, and I normally paint at the easel, not at the table, I got some big sheets of paper out, and the first painting I did is the one I will show you. I just bought it back this morning because it's been in Sevenoaks in an exhibition for a week, and of the group of artists. And I just had to collect it because we've taken it all down this morning. But it will show you the difference. You can see there.
You've got a lovely bright light studio there too. Yeah, so I love the colours.
And that was about freedom. I think I called it release. It could have been relief just as easy, because I was out of pain for the first time in about 3 months. So that for me is what there will be more in that vein, shall we say.
I like that. Yeah.
When I actually do them, matters less, because I've got a book full, and I can also return to that quite easily within myself. So
have you always kept a journal of your art, a sketchbook going? Some artists do, don't they? And some don't.
I mean, this small one, this size, I would take out sometimes if I go. Well, I go out fairly regularly with a group. But I actually like painting on big sheets of paper much more than in small sketchbooks. So this kind of size is much more my ticket. And while we were quiet the first weekend in Hadlow, I sat and sketched in the garden. So it's loose. It's faithful to the environment, but it's loose. And then I went on and took the shapes and abstracted it. So you will see that even an abstract relates to, you can see a bit of the building and the bushes. And it's in there. So whatever I do is going to be related to something.
I was interested because when you talk about sizes of sketchbooks, when the page is limited in size, it's more of a wrist movement, isn't it? And when you've got a large piece of paper you can actually use from the forearm, it must be a totally different experience for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is A3, this big one. And my go-to size for paintings that I don't even think about is 50 centimeters, 20 inches, or larger. I do smaller paintings, but for me, I find it much harder than to be expressive on a large sheet of paper or a canvas.
Yeah, the expression of self.
It may come from the fact that when I did the beginners, we were started on large canvases. We weren't started like some art classes on a piece of A4 paper.
I can't understand that.
So we just began on large. So it's quite natural to do it larger rather than smaller.
It's a bit like being a child. Some children will be given a big expanse of paper in the classroom, and then think they'll draw something tiny at the bottom, and then others will just really fill the whole space. Yeah, it's interesting. So what's you haven't got any plans for coming up? You're going to remain open and free, which is a beautiful mindset. What's the best way for anyone to contact you then if they can't come along to an exhibition now at this point? Obviously, maybe next year, but for the audience sake, we're in June 2024, and there's more to come from Elaine, obviously. Well, how would they contact you? What's the best way to find you?
Well, I am on Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, but for contact purposes, Facebook and Instagram, as Elaine Almond Art. So that's very simple. My website, www.elainealmondart.com, and there's a page on there where you can message me. And my email address, it's all on my Facebook page, it's on the website.
So people can follow you.
And they can follow me, and I'm very happy to. Any questions, post a question. But
yeah. And do you teach or run workshops at all, or is that not something you're interested in at the moment?
I do teach, actually. For quite a while I ran a group locally, but we closed down with the economic crisis. A couple were ill, a couple moved away, and the remaining ones decided they needed to focus their funds elsewhere. But I do groups, and you can book me for group through an organisation called Art Profile.
Okay.
And the details of that are on my website. They're an agency for artists, and they work with art clubs and so on. So if anyone is running an art group and wants a session for a group, then that's how to get hold of me there.
Excellent. Okay, I've not heard of that one, so that's really useful. What I'll do is
I'll put all of it. They can ask you, can't they?
Yes, yeah. Well, I will put all the contact details into the description of the interview, and also in the comments, so that people can find you, because we can see how busy you are and prolific you are, and I think you've described your work really well. Fascinating. Is there anything else you'd like to say to anyone watching this? Is there anything inspiring that you'd like to say to a budding artist?
Well, I think one of the things we hear all the time, and it's been said even over this weekend in open studios, people come around and say, but I love it, but I could never do that. Actually, you can. All of us, we're creative in some way. Use what you enjoy. It's a journey. You can't expect on day one to do a masterpiece. I've been painting for nearly 20 years, and I still think I have a long way to go. So if you're just taking up a brush, don't worry about it. Just make loads of mess and keep going and enjoy it. And
have fun.
Somewhere along the line, something will emerge.
Right, lovely. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for that, Elaine. It's very uplifting, interesting insights, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, bye. Bye, everyone.